Welcome to RoadTex, an Echo company. We're a nationwide leader in temperature-controlled LTL transportation and warehousing services spanning the entire shipping lifecycle. Matter of fact, we're one of the only temperature-controlled providers with food-grade warehouses that offer retail consolidation solutions. Leveraging our advanced technology and extensive network, we simplify shipping for clients.
Hello, welcome to the Stockout. It's getting interesting here at FreightWaves. We're now about T-minus 15 hours before the potential ILA strike, and I haven't seen anything that's going to get in the way of that. Have you, Grace?
Nope, not at all whatsoever. It sounds like, I think their announcement said something about 11 a.m. deadline for them today to announce if anything changed. But yeah, I don't think that's happening in the next hour at all. So
it's 11 a.m. Eastern. That's already 10 Eastern. Okay.
Yeah, so consider it Hell Week, I guess you could say, as we enter this wonderful new month as well.
Okay, so we have plenty to talk about on that end. I mean, we're not going to let a good crisis go to waste. What we're going to do instead is have wall-to-wall coverage on FreightWaves.com. Stuart Churl's pumping out lots of good articles on that topic. There's one right there if you can see the screen, and so it's still on schedule. And the dock workers are going to walk off the job, tomorrow morning at midnight, if all things go according to plan. And I think the latest is that the U.S. Maritime Alliance says they can't get a meeting scheduled with the ILA. They couldn't for the last number of weeks. I mean, I guess really since going back to June, they filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board. To that effect, that they couldn't get a meeting scheduled. They had been saying past couple of weeks that the ILA, they thought, has already decided to strike. And then you did get the report from Reuters about 2 weeks ago that the Biden administration pledged to not invoke Taft-Hartley to stop a strike. So one of the things I did this morning, went through some of Stuart Churl's latest articles, and he brings up a really good point, and that point was that there could be some semantics at play there, where I guess if you really sort of look at the wording of what the Biden administration had said, is that he would not invoke Taft-Hartley to block a strike, but maybe he could still come back later and intervene. That would be similar to the precedent George W. Bush set in 2002 when to stop the ILWU strike on the West Coast. And then there was the speculation. This morning there was a line from the Wall Street Journal article that someone familiar with the administration said that the Biden administration believes that the supply chain is solid, it's resilient, it could withstand a strike for up to 1 week. And so maybe 1 week is kind of the bogey at this point. If it goes beyond that, maybe all things sort of break loose, and then you go sort of revisit what we talked about the past couple of weeks was some of the speculation of the impact. The company C Intelligence speculated a 1 day strike would take 5 days to clear. A 1 day strike would take 5 days to clear. A 1 week strike would cause shutdowns until mid-November, and then a 2 week strike would be cleared until 2025. And that sort of implies that there'd be 5 or 6 days, maybe 5 to 7 days of disruption for every 1 day that the strike was shut down. There's also the speculation that maybe really that's sort of overly simplistic, where it's really kind of compounds and it's more of a logarithmic impact, that the longer the strike goes on, the worse the impact is. It gets to be kind of exponential. So very interesting times. We'll see what happens. But want to draw on your experience because you spent so much time in the freight brokerage market. So can you sort of break down how a shipper carrier should be feeling about this?
Yeah, well, one thing I will say, and I think Stuart has mentioned this a number of times as well, I was just talking to him this morning about this too, is that it sounds like the logistics and brokers out there, freight forwarders, have all been on top of this and doing the best that they can to make sure that the big shippers have everything in that they need for inventory purposes, and talks that we could go at least a week without seeing huge disruption. I mean, you and I both know that still would lead to some congestion and I'm sure some interesting sonar charts to go along with it as well. But it sounds like the majority of freight forwarders out there and logistics providers have been warning and educating their companies that this is something to watch out for. We've seen Ryan Peterson, for example, right over at Flexport, all over this constantly over the last, I'd say month now at the very least, even tweeting about it on a daily basis. And it's not, I think, as scary as what I think we saw, of course, during COVID and that quick disruption that we didn't see coming. Our good friend Lori over at CNBC put out an interesting article today, too, that went into the actual data and freight that's coming into the ports. I think we received somewhere around a little under $3 billion in freight on Friday. And so that kind of shows you right there as well with that. I think we have shippers really pushing to get things in before this happened. The most exposed companies, biggest percentage goes to General Motors. We got interesting names on, and this is out of New York and New Jersey. Walmart is a big one coming into the ports as well. Let's see, Samsung, IKEA, big ones, Home Depot, a number of tire providers between Goodyear and Continental. So definitely names I think that we'd expect to see on the list, even outside of a situation that we're dealing with today. But I would hope, and I think just hearing from leaders across the space, shippers and again logistics providers as well, that a number of these companies have forecasted this and have likely moved in their freight early enough where they can go a few days without any issues. Now, my concern is, again, no one's talking to each other. I don't think the Biden administration has the best resources right now for negotiating and helping with this. There was another interesting article that came out this past week, too, that in the last port negotiations, the man in particular that ran a lot of those negotiations is no longer there. And I think he's working on the Harris campaign now. So do we have the people in the right place to talk this out and get this done, especially with I'd say, very strong, headstrong leadership behind the ILA right now?
Yeah, my guess is that the Biden administration will invoke Taft-Hartley. I don't think it'll go a full week, but it might go a few days. But we'll see. Very interesting times. Before we intro today's guest, I want to make sure everyone knows how to sign up for the Stockout newsletter, which I spend some time working on every week. All you have to do is go to www.freightwaves.com/the Stockout. Put in whatever I think is relevant and interesting to shippers, specifically looking at things that would be interested and relevant to retail and CPG shippers. And then for those of you who would like to join us at our conference in Chattanooga, you can do that with a special discount code. I include that in the newsletter, show you how to do that and give you the link and all that. But you can sign up on the site via the discount code F3 Stockout 24. So use F3 Stockout 24. You get a discount code. Would like to see some stockouters there. It's always great when people have come and have seen the show. And sometimes we do shows live like we did in Atlanta there.
Yeah, that was a good show too with Echo as well. So again, go check that out. Just a few months left, which is crazy to see that coming. But yes, we do have a wonderful guest with us today as well from Netstock. Joining us is Ara Ohanian. Happy to have you here, Ara. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me, Grayson. That's very nice of you. Great day today.
Yes.
Yeah, so why don't we start? Can you just give us a little bit of an overview of Netstock for people who are not familiar?
Absolutely. At Netstock, we basically bring enterprise-level software capabilities for supply chain planning and inventory optimization to small and mid-sized companies so they can really compete and punch above their weight category. And we do that in an affordable way so that we can empower entrepreneurs to protect and change our communities for the better.
Well, speaking of for the better, just what we talked about this so far this episode, right? We've got an interesting week ahead of us right now with the ILA in particular, and I'm interested. How have you seen shippers and customers start to mitigate the risks from this strike? And of course, we also have tariffs and possible administration changes. How has Netstock guided shippers through
I
this?
think we have our customer base of a few thousand customers, over 20,000 supply chain planners using our systems, are across all regions around the world. And I think the thing to really understand, it's ILA strike. It's just another disruption of the supply chain or a potential disruption. And I think we need to understand that's a new normal, whether it's a strike, whether it's terrible weather, or whether it's a geopolitical issues that lead to war. All these things are going to continually make our customers' supply chain less predictable. As a result, the important thing for them is to have the visibility into their own supply chain in terms of where their supply comes from and who they sell to and how to satisfy their SLA, and then have the agility to respond to these kind of changes so they can optimize their inventory to drive more growth. So I think this concept of accept it's a new normal and start planning towards it so you can optimize more effectively is really where it is, because no one has a crystal ball to avoid it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're definitely seeing companies with contingency plans or having multiple plans for different scenarios. Like one of the things that we've seen is on the ocean industry, all the carriers seem to have kind of one plan if the Red Sea is shut down, which it might be all next year, who knows, another plan if those attacks stop, they can go through the Red Sea. And so that's like one area where there's not a lot of visibility, I think. I mean, you talk about how you can bring some additional visibility to inventory management. Where are kind of the blind spots that shippers have right now where they're sort of lacking that visibility?
I think maybe the first thing to look at is when you have to separate the world into enterprise players and the mid-market and small businesses. 98% of U.S. retail comes from small and medium-sized businesses, which represents 44% of our GDP. So I think, and 95% of these companies operate their inventory planning on spreadsheets. So they do not really have visibility into where their opportunities for optimizing their inventory can be down to the product item level when a disruption hits them. So that's the first thing to look at. And when an issue disruption happen, it's not that just you want to change the way you're shipping things, because by the time it's happened, it's too late. So you can't really preempt it. Yes, you could increase your inventory on certain products. You could use a new route. So if instead of you could look at the Cape Hope route or the Suez Canal or the Northern Sea routes. These are kind of things. But I think the most important thing for these businesses is to understand how do they grow? What are the products that drive them more margin and revenue? And then when something like this happens, get visibility to see how they can change their product mix optimization. So a very simple example, imagine if a company had only three products. It's a blue pen, a red pen, and a green pen. And the green pen is most affected by a particular strike or like ILA. In this case, the issue is, can we be rethinking what the mix of our green and red pen should be in our marketplace so that we can still optimize our SLAs, optimize our revenue opportunity, our growth, and as a result, there's different ways of responding to it. You cannot always just change the way you're shipping. And the other thing is not to panic. What happens with companies that don't have visibility, the first instinct is to panic, and panic means get more inventory, buy more because there's a problem, buy insurance. And that becomes a problem because the issues, as we're seeing, and you mentioned it in the early part, there's a 3x lag effect at least when a disruption happens. So if you just increase or change the way in which you're moving product, it might not be enough. You really need to optimize which products can substitute, and you have excess redistribution somewhere that can actually help you rethink your product mix and the satisfaction of your SLAs and your customers.
Yeah, it's interesting because during the pandemic, right, we saw a lot of shippers kind of focus on that inventory strategy, right? Just have enough here on the shelves. And do you feel like that shippers have moved past that way of gauging and planning their inventory? And how do you see them managing their inventory now to avoid these disruptions that are becoming, I don't want to say more common, but are being seen, right, quicker and faster?
Yeah, I think the first thing is 95% of them can't do it. If you're on spreadsheets and you have more than 500 SKUs and some kind of disruption hits, there's very little visibility you have on that. So the issue is can generally the technology market and software providers bring affordable tools to the mid-market so they can respond? Because if you really look at it, the larger companies really don't have such a great problem responding to it. They got data scientists on board. They can do linear regression models. They use ML for doing different scenario based, and they have a scenario that's already in place to bring on when something happens. It's 95% of the market are these small businesses and mid-market businesses supplying retail, and they are lacking the tools. So I think the question of, if you don't have experts, you don't have the tools, you don't have the ability to really plan effectively. And I think that lack of planning is something that's inherent to the SMB market that serves the majority of our retail business. And this is where we see why AI could be such an important thing. We looked at excess redistribution, for instance. If you have products that will not be able to get into your marketplace because of some disruption, but you have products sitting that are similar within your supply chain or within your own distribution chain, if you can effectively and rapidly find out which ones are sitting in places that are going to be slow movers and in which areas same product may be sitting that's a fast mover, and if you have a total ability for your software to automate how you can move the slow moving markets into the rapid moving markets, now you can optimize your product to still continue growing and satisfying your customers.
Interesting.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot of some of the trends we've talked about in the show related to CPG companies. Like a lot of the CPG companies they've rationalized a number of SKUs. So they've sort of focused on the ones that are moving the quickest, and just to make this entire process easier, kind of the way you're describing it is in addition to doing some of the optimization you're talking about. Wanted to ask you, with how have inventory management just procedures or strategies changed with the volatility in the interest rates? Those rose so sharply, and now we're on sort of a downward trend. But how are companies thinking about that?
And I think, I speak to the voice of the small and mid market, right? And that's what Netstock is into, championing the entrepreneurs who sort of challenge the Amazons and the Walmarts. Well, very important. Our motto is, who wants to live in a world that's only dominated by Amazon and by Walmart? They're useful, but we want communities to have vibrant entrepreneurs who are able to react. So I think that the first thing with these businesses is they have two challenges when it comes to interest rate and how they invest in inventory. One of them, as rates go up, the cost of borrowing stops them from being able to invest where they wanted to invest. So the ability to optimize which products are going to move faster, have higher velocity and higher margin becomes extremely important, because if not, you're allocating your capital into products that are not bringing you as much growth, profit, and fulfillment of your SLAs. The second thing is that quite often these businesses don't have the balance sheets. Even if they're ready to take the higher cost, they don't have the balance sheets to raise that kind of money. So typically in small businesses and mid-sized businesses, you see them using cash flow as their number one financing of their inventory, or sometimes even credit cards for the much smaller ones. So the ability to really unlock working capital from product inventory that's moving slower and with lower margins and lower velocity really becomes the tool by which they can unleash more capital towards growth. So this capital unlocking and redeployment of capital around optimization of product movement becomes the important thing for them.
Yeah, on that note as well, I mean, especially the market that you're serving, which I love, that mid-market area is, I agree with you, being able to compete with the bigger companies is the American dream right here, right? How do you help them really build the supply chain like we see from Amazon, right? With multiple fulfillment centers and all of these different warehousing. How do you help them capitalize on their warehousing capabilities in order to meet demand of their customers, but also maybe work against the capital issues that they are dealing with being so small?
Absolutely. If you look at most businesses, they have two components when you look at supply chain and their ability to create product, create inventory, and then sell it. On one side, you have the operators. And so that could be the CFO, the CEO, the general manager, head of sales, and so on. And they're not experts in supply chain management. And the other side, you have the demand planners or warehouse planners. And in most mid-sized companies, the expertise doesn't exist in the way it does in large ones. So it might be a warehouse manager that got promoted over time to becoming the planner. So they had a very simple spreadsheet, and a few products, then they add products to that spreadsheet. Before you know it, they become an expert in creating pivot tables and so on to see what product lies where. But that provides them a view of today or yesterday. It doesn't provide them visibility into what the future could look like. So, for instance, what we do to help our customer, our algorithmic approach in our software takes the risk of both supply and demand. So the risk of the forecast not being accurate, so you keep on plugging that in, and then the risk of on the supply side, was it on time? Was the supplier on time? Did they send the right product? Was the price correct? Did they oversupply? And every 24 hours, our algorithm runs that and gives a new suggested 365 day view of what your optimized order should be. So by having a risk-based model rather than only relying on the forecast, now you're able to be more agile and respond to changes in the marketplace. So we partner in these businesses both with operators, the CFOs, GM, and CEOs, and also with the planners, so that together they can have a better view of what the future looks like, and continually we automate the optimal orders, so that they don't lock future capital in the wrong product and inventory decisions.
Interesting.
Yeah, one of the topics we talked about in the show is the sort of trials and tribulations that small and mid-sized CPG companies have when dealing with Amazon. I mean, they seem like they have to be on Amazon. They're in the Amazon marketplace. The FTC laid out just why that's difficult to do that profitably pretty well, I thought. Do you have any thoughts on how shippers can manage that?
Absolutely. And, preamble, I do love Amazon, use Amazon and so on. And I do use Google as well. However, they're in the business of making money, right? They're not in the business of helping 3/4 of the mid-market be more optimize their profit, their growth, and their product situation. So if you look at them as 3PLs, the business of a 3PL is to increase volume. The more warehousing they increase, the more volume comes to them, the more money they make. So to some degree, there's an inverse relationship between what the 3PLs want, more product, versus what the businesses should do, optimization. And the key thing is, when I interviewed, for instance, many of our customers, right, to understand their pains around their distribution, big Amazon distribution channels, they always say, well, if we miss some of the key SLAs, they could drop our product. And as a result, they overinvest often in certain products so that they buy an insurance, in other words, not to disappoint an Amazon. And that's expensive. Now, And that's typical of companies that run on spreadsheet. They run their inventory planning on spreadsheet. Now, companies that have had a chance to graduate from a spreadsheet into a predictive planning software like Netstock, and I don't want to just, we're not the only ones. There's more and more companies that realize they can help that mid-market. These companies now, instead of keep on increasing their inventory position, they optimize it. And there's a big difference between optimizing and increasing. Increasing is expensive. Optimizing releases margins. So I think that's the key thing. How do you deal with a large distributor or a 3PL like an Amazon and so that you can have more control, so they don't only dictate what you should be keeping in your inventory, they can only dictate what they want is in terms of your supply capabilities. So I think it's a fine point of relationship, but we need to help mid-market companies optimize better so they don't have to over-invest in product to satisfy the large 3PLs.
Well, Ara, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show today and educating us. It's perfect timing with everything going on as well this week, too. And for everyone, you can check them out at netstock.com. And, of course, make sure you head to FreightWaves.com and to sign up for our newsletter. Other than that, we will be probably back next week talking some more port news. Hopefully it's figured itself out. But until then, enjoy the week.
Thanks for having me.